Vlad the Impaler, the prince behind the Dracula legend, Part 1, a prince born into chaos. In the middle decades of the 15th century, Eastern Europe was a continent caught between two worlds. To the west lay the fractured kingdoms of Christendom, weakened by internal conflict and struggling to unite against a common threat. To the east and south, the Ottoman Empire under Sultan Mehmed II was reaching the height of its power, pressing northward into the Balkans and threatening the very heart of Europe. Between these two great forces lay a series of small principalities that served as buffer states, shifting allegiances as survival demanded. Among the most strategically important of these was Wallachia, a principality stretching across the plains south of the Carpathian Mountains in what is now southern Romania. Wallachia's position made it both valuable and vulnerable. Controlling the key passes through the Carpathians and the lands north of the Danube, it was a prize coveted by both the Hungarian kingdom to the north and the Ottoman sultans to the south. The rulers of Wallachia, called voivodes or princes, were forced into a dangerous balancing act. They owed nominal allegiance to the Hungarian crown, but they also paid tribute to the Ottomans to avoid invasion. This dual obligation meant that Wallachian princes lived in constant danger, threatened by foreign armies, rival claimants to the throne, and treacherous boyars, the powerful noble families who controlled much of the land and wealth. Into this world of intrigue and violence, Vlad III was born sometime between 1428 and 1431. His father was Vlad II, a prince who had been inducted into the Order of the Dragon, a chivalric brotherhood founded by the Holy Roman Emperor Sigismund to defend Christendom against the Ottoman advance. The order's symbol was a dragon, and Vlad II became known as Vlad Dracul, meaning Vlad the Dragon. The word Dracul also carried the connotation of devil in the Romanian language, a duality that would echo through his son's legacy. Vlad III, as the son of Dracul, became known as Dracula or Dracula, meaning son of the dragon or son of the devil. Vlad's early childhood was spent in the town of Siasora in Transylvania, but his formative years were shaped by captivity. In 1442, his father, seeking to secure his throne and demonstrate loyalty to the Ottoman Sultan, sent Vlad and his younger brother Radu to the Ottoman court as hostages. This was a common practice, a guarantee of good behavior by vassal rulers. The two boys were held at the court of Sultan Murad II in Edirne and later in Anatolia. Contemporary sources provide little detail about these years, but modern historians agree that this experience profoundly influenced Vlad. He received a rigorous education in warfare, diplomacy, and the Turkish language. He also witnessed the Ottoman military machine firsthand, including its discipline, organization, and ruthless efficiency. While his brother Radu adapted well and eventually converted to Islam, Vlad remained defiant and resentful, a captive prince nursing grievances that would shape his future policies. Meanwhile, Wallachia itself remained unstable. Vlad Dracul tried to maintain the delicate balance between Hungary and the Ottomans, but shifting alliances made this impossible. When he broke his oath to the Sultan and sided with a Christian crusade led by the Hungarian regent John Hunyadi, the consequences were catastrophic. In December 1447, Vlad Dracul and his eldest son Mircea were killed. According to some chronicles, Mircea was buried alive by rival boyars loyal to the Dracul family, a competing branch of the Wallachian ruling dynasty. Vlad III, still a teenager and held hostage in Ottoman lands, learned that his father and brother were dead, and that his future depended on forces far beyond his control. Sources used: Dracula, Prince of Many Faces by Radu Floresu and Raymond T. McNally, pages 30-58. Vlad III Dracula, The Life and Times of the Historical Dracula by Kurt W. Treptow, pages 1134. The Ottoman Empire by Halil Inalcik, pages 22-27, 104-107. Part 2. The rise of Vlad's first attempt to claim his father's throne came in 1448. Backed by Ottoman support, he entered Wallachia and briefly seized power, but his reign lasted only 2 months. The boyars and Hungarian forces drove him out, and for the next several years he lived in exile, moving between Moldavia and Transylvania. These were years of waiting, learning, and planning. Vlad observed the political maneuvering of neighboring rulers and refined his understanding of power. He also cultivated a relationship with John Hunyadi, the very man who had been instrumental in his father's downfall. Hunyadi, recognizing Vlad's potential usefulness, eventually supported his return. In 1456, after the death of Hunyadi and the execution of the reigning Wallachian prince Vladislav II, Vlad reclaimed the throne. This time he was determined to hold it. He faced an immediate challenge. The boyar families who had undermined his father and killed his brother still wielded enormous power. These nobles controlled estates, private armies, and networks of loyalty that rivaled the prince's own authority. Vlad understood that without breaking their power, his rule would remain fragile. According to multiple contemporary German pamphlets and Slavonic tales, Vlad moved swiftly and brutally. One of the most widely reported incidents occurred on Easter Sunday in 1459. Vlad invited the leading boyar families to a feast at his court in Targovist. Once assembled, he had the older nobles impaled on stakes outside the city. The younger and healthier boyars were forced to march 50 miles north to the ruins of a fortress on the Arges River, where they were compelled to rebuild the castle that would become known as Ponari. Many died from exhaustion. These events, though horrifying, served a calculated purpose. Vlad eliminated those who had supported rival claimants and demonstrated that nobility offered no protection against the prince's wrath. Impalement, the method of execution that gave Vlad his infamous epithet, was not unique to him. It was used throughout the medieval world, including in the Ottoman Empire, Persia, and parts of Europe. However, Vlad employed it on a scale and with a consistency that shocked contemporaries. The condemned were forced onto sharpened wooden stakes, which were then erected vertically. Death was slow and agonizing, sometimes taking hours or even days. The intention was not merely punishment but demonstration. By displaying the impaled publicly, Vlad sent a message to enemies, rivals, and subjects alike. Disobedience would be met with merciless retribution. Modern historians debate the extent to which these accounts are accurate. German pamphlets, printed and circulated widely in the 1460s and 1470s, contain lurid descriptions of Vlad's cruelty, including claims that he dined among the impaled and tortured victims in elaborate ways. These pamphlets were often propaganda, commissioned by political enemies, including the Saxon merchants of Transylvania, whom Vlad had persecuted for economic and political reasons. Slavonic tales, circulated in Russian lands, present a more ambiguous picture, sometimes portraying Vlad as a harsh, but just ruler who punished criminals and traitors. What is clear from multiple sources, however, is that Vlad did use impalement extensively, that he ruled through fear, and that his methods were considered extreme even by the standards of a violent age. Vlad also undertook significant administrative reforms. He centralized authority, reduced the autonomy of towns, and enforced strict laws against theft and corruption. Some accounts claim that during his reign, a golden cup was left by a well in the center of Targovist, and no one dared steal it. Whether literally true or not, such stories reflect the fear and order Vlad imposed. He also promoted men of lower birth into positions of authority, bypassing the traditional boyar elite and creating a class of officials loyal directly to him. Sources used: Vlad III Dracula, The Life and Times of the Historical Dracula by Kurt W. Treptow, pages 42-76. Dracula, Prince of Many Faces by Radu Floresu and Raymond T. McNally, pages 89-127. Vlad the Impaler by M.J. Troe, pages 62-93. Part 3. War against the Ottoman Empire by 1459. Vlad had consolidated power within Wallachia and turned his attention to the greatest threat facing his principality, the Ottoman Empire. Sultan Mehmed II, fresh from his conquest of Constantinople in 1453, demanded that Vlad pay the traditional tribute and provide 500 young boys annually for the Ottoman Janissary Corps. Vlad refused. More than that, he began launching raids across the Danube into Ottoman-controlled Bulgaria, burning villages, killing Ottoman soldiers and officials, and liberating Christian captives. These raids were not mere border skirmishes. According to a letter Vlad himself sent to the Hungarian king Matthias Corvinus in 1462, his forces killed more than 23,000 people during a winter campaign. While this number is likely exaggerated, multiple sources confirm that Vlad's attacks were extensive and brutal. His aim was not only military but psychological, to provoke the Sultan into a direct confrontation and to rally Christian Europe to support a crusade against the Ottomans. In the spring of 1462, Mehmed II responded. The Sultan personally led an army estimated at between 60,000 and 90,000 men northward into Wallachia. Vlad commanded a much smaller force, likely no more than 10,000 to 30,000 men. Direct battle was impossible. Instead, Vlad adopted a strategy of scorched earth and guerrilla warfare. His forces poisoned wells, burned crops, evacuated towns, and ambushed Ottoman columns. The goal was to deny the invaders supplies and demoralize them through constant harassment. The most famous episode of the campaign occurred on the night of June 17, 1462. According to multiple sources, including the Byzantine historian Leonikos Chalkakondals, Vlad launched a nighttime raid directly into the Ottoman camp near Targovist. The objective was to kill or capture the Sultan himself. The attack caused chaos and heavy casualties, but Mehmed escaped. The raid demonstrated Vlad's boldness and tactical skill, but it could not reverse the strategic imbalance. The Wallachian forces inflicted damage but could not defeat the Ottoman army in open battle. What followed became one of the most enduring images associated with Vlad. When Mehmed's forces approached Targovist, they encountered a forest of impaled corpses stretching for miles. Chalkakondals and Ottoman chroniclers describe the scene. Thousands of stakes bearing the bodies of Ottoman prisoners, Bulgarian civilians, and others, arranged in rows, rotting in the summer heat. The sight reportedly horrified even the battle-hardened Sultan. Whether this display achieved its intended effect of demoralizing the Ottomans is debated, but Mehmed soon withdrew, leaving Vlad's brother Radu, now loyal to the Sultan, to continue the campaign with Ottoman backing and local support from disaffected boyars. Modern historians interpret these events in different ways. Some see Vlad as a defender of Christian Europe, a prince who used extreme measures to resist overwhelming Ottoman power. Others emphasize the political and personal motives behind his actions, including rivalry with his brother and the desire to secure Hungarian support. Romanian historiography, especially during the 19th and 20th centuries, often portrayed Vlad as a national hero resisting foreign domination. Contemporary Ottoman sources depict him as a brutal rebel deserving punishment. The German pamphlets, published shortly after these events, describe him as a blood-soaked tyrant. What is historically certain is that Vlad's resistance, though fierce, ultimately failed. By late 1462, Radu had gained control of Wallachia with Ottoman and boyar support. Vlad fled north into Transylvania, seeking refuge with Matthias Corvinus, the king of Hungary to whom he had appealed for aid. Sources used: Vlad III Dracula, The Life and Times of the Historical Dracula by Kurt W. Treptow, pages 84–128. The Histories of Leonikos Chalkakondals, translated sections relating to the 1462 campaign Dracula. Prince of Many Faces by Radu Floresu and Raymond T. McNally, pages 130–164. Part 4. Imprisonment, Final Reign, and Death. What Vlad expected to be sanctuary turned into captivity. King Matthias Corvinus, instead of supporting Vlad's return to Wallachia, had him arrested and imprisoned. The reasons remain debated among historians. Matthias had received funds from the Pope intended to finance a crusade against the Ottomans, and holding Vlad may have served as a convenient justification for his failure to act. Additionally, letters allegedly written by Vlad offering peace to the Ottomans were presented as evidence of treason, though modern scholars suspect these were forgeries. Whatever the true reasons, Vlad spent the next 12 to 14 years in captivity, held in Hungary under conditions that remain unclear. Some sources suggest house arrest in Buda or Visegrad rather than a dungeon, but details are sparse. During these years, Wallachia remained under Vlad's brother Radu, and later other princes aligned with Ottoman interests. The region continued to suffer from political instability, invasions, and internal strife. Meanwhile, Vlad's imprisonment became the subject of stories and propaganda. The German pamphlets, which had already circulated accounts of his cruelty, were reprinted and expanded. Illustrations depicted Vlad dining among impaled victims, torturing people in grotesque ways, and committing acts that blurred the line between documented cruelty and imaginative fiction. These works were among the first mass-produced printed books and helped cement Vlad's reputation across Europe as a monster. By the mid-1470s, the political situation had shifted once more. Matthias Corvinus, facing renewed Ottoman pressure and instability in Wallachia, decided that Vlad might once again be useful. Vlad converted from Orthodox Christianity to Catholicism, a move likely motivated by political necessity rather than sincere conviction, and married into a Hungarian noble family. In 1476, with Hungarian and Moldavian support, he invaded Wallachia for a third time and reclaimed the throne. His final reign was brief. Vlad faced opposition from the Ottoman Empire, rival claimants, and a boyar class that had not forgotten his earlier purges. By December 1476 or January 1477, Vlad was dead. The exact circumstances of his death remain uncertain. Some sources suggest he was killed in battle against Ottoman forces or rival Wallachian factions. Others claim assassination or betrayal. No contemporary account provides reliable detail, and later traditions offer contradictory narratives. The location of Vlad's burial is similarly uncertain. Tradition long held that he was buried at Snagov Monastery on an island north of Bucharest. Excavations in the 20th century uncovered graves, but none were conclusively identified as Vlad's. Some historians suggest he may have been buried elsewhere, or that his remains were moved or lost. The lack of a confirmed grave has only added to the mythology surrounding him. What is historically clear is that Vlad's death marked the end of a turbulent and violent life. He ruled Wallachia during 3 separate reigns totaling only about 6 years, yet his impact on history and legend far exceeded that brief tenure. Sources used: Vlad III Dracula, The Life and Times of the Historical Dracula by Kurt W. Treptow, pages 130–162, Vlad the Impaler by M.J. Troe, pages 138–171, Dracula. Prince of Many Faces by Radu Floresu and Raymond T. McNally, pages 178–203, Part 5. From historical prince to Dracula after his death, Vlad's legacy fractured into competing narratives, each shaped by the political and cultural needs of those who remembered him. In the German-speaking lands, his reputation remained overwhelmingly negative. The printed pamphlets, which continued to circulate for decades, portrayed him as a sadistic tyrant whose cruelty knew no bounds. These texts were not merely historical accounts but morality tales, using Vlad as an example of unchristian excess and diabolical evil. Illustrations showed him feasting among the dying, and stories accused him of acts so grotesque that historians doubt their veracity. Yet these accounts were widely believed and helped establish Vlad as one of the most notorious figures of the medieval world. In the Slavonic traditions, particularly those circulating in Russia and other Orthodox lands, Vlad's image was more complex. The Slavonic tales, written in the late 15th and early 16th centuries, depicted him as a stern and sometimes cruel ruler, but also as a defender of justice and order. In these stories, Vlad punished corrupt priests, dishonest merchants, and lazy peasants, enforcing a harsh but comprehensible moral code. These accounts reflected admiration for strong centralized authority and were sometimes used as cautionary tales or even models for autocratic rule. In Wallachia and the broader Romanian lands, memory of Vlad faded for centuries. The region remained under Ottoman suzerainty, and later under Habsburg and Russian influence. It was not until the 19th century, during the rise of Romanian nationalism, that Vlad was rediscovered and rehabilitated. Historians and writers seeking national heroes portrayed him as a courageous defender of Romanian independence against foreign domination. This nationalist interpretation emphasized his resistance to the Ottomans and downplayed or rationalized his brutality. Vlad became a symbol of national strength and defiance, a narrative that was further amplified during the communist era in Romania, when state-sponsored historiography celebrated him as a proto-revolutionary figure fighting feudalism and imperialism. Meanwhile, in the wider world, Vlad's name became permanently linked to a very different kind of legend. In 1897, Irish author Bram Stoker published Dracula, a Gothic horror novel about a Transylvanian vampire. Stoker borrowed the name Dracula from brief references to Vlad in historical texts he consulted at the British Library, but his fictional count bore almost no resemblance to the historical prince. Stoker's Dracula was immortal, supernatural, and capable of transforming into a bat or wolf. The novel was set in Transylvania, not Wallachia, and its plot involved Victorian England, not 15th-century geopolitics. Yet the name stuck. Over the 20th century, countless films, books, and adaptations cemented the association between the historical Vlad and the fictional vampire. Despite the nearly complete disconnect between the two, modern scholarship has worked to separate history from myth. Historians like Kurt W. Treptow, Radu Floresu, Raymond T. McNally, and M.J. Troe have carefully analyzed primary sources to reconstruct Vlad's actual life and reign. They acknowledge that he was indeed exceptionally violent, even by the brutal standards of his time. The scale and deliberateness of his use of impalement, the targeting of both foreign enemies and domestic rivals, and the psychological dimension of his cruelty distinguish him from most contemporaries. At the same time, scholars recognize that many of the most extreme stories about him were exaggerated or invented by political enemies. The German pamphlets were propaganda, designed to discredit him and entertain readers with sensational tales. The Ottoman sources vilified a rebel who defied the Sultan. The Slavonic tales served didactic purposes that sometimes distorted facts. What remains undisputed is that Vlad III was a complex and ruthless ruler who operated in an exceptionally unstable and violent environment. He faced existential threats from the Ottoman Empire, the Hungarian kingdom, rival claimants, and powerful internal factions. He responded with calculated terror, centralized authority, and military daring. His methods were extreme, but they were also strategic, designed to consolidate power and deter enemies in a world where weakness invited destruction. Vlad the Impaler remains one of history's most debated figures precisely because his life sits at the intersection of documented history, political propaganda, national mythology, and popular culture. The challenge for historians is to recover the real man from beneath centuries of legend. What emerges is not a vampire, not a mere monster, and not a flawless national hero, but a medieval prince shaped by captivity, betrayal, and war, who chose to rule through fear and left a legacy written in blood and memory. Sources used: Dracula, Prince of Many Faces by Radu Floresu and Raymond T. McNally, pages 210-251, Vlad III Dracula. The Life and Times of the Historical Dracula by Kurt W. Treptow, pages 168-201, Vlad the Impaler by M.J. Troe, pages 180-214.